easy, 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 easy. We're in the final. We're in the final. Ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you something. What a week. What another great week in England. Let's extrapolate that out to the whole kingdom, shall we, Jim?
Yeah, why not?
I think it's a great day for the world.
Do you?
Everyone's behind us.
Is that good?
And we can say what we want because all the people who are home nation supporters that aren't English supporters aren't going to be listening to this show.
No.
Do what you want.
Wait, rest assured, we've got Spain in the final.
But
let's concentrate.
They'll be back in on Monday. Don't worry about that.
Let's concentrate on the here and now. England beat Netherlands 2-1 in the semi-final of the European Championships. They're through to their second consecutive Euros final. What were we all worried about? It was just England are inevitable, Andy Brassel.
I'm just delighted that you haven't taken off and you're still here.
Someone strapped Marcus down in the chair. Still like that scene in Mary Poppins where they all float towards the ceiling.
I'll tell you what.
It feels like Gareth Southgate has expertly managed you and put you in the right spot at the right time.
He has.
Get yourself down, M&S.
He's created the environment, hasn't he, for you to do your best work.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely it.
What a night. What a night.
It is truly glorious. It really, really is. I was Jonathan Wilson in his good piece at The Guardian. Late era Southgate is bewildering, but it's magnificent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is.
I mean, he's created the environment for us all.
Could have been talking about Dion Dublin's penis, couldn't it?
Bewildering?
Possibly. We don't know.
Bewitching, for sure. Yeah. By all accounts.
Yeah.
But yeah, this environment that has come about now feels like we've overcome the stodge and the pain and the boredom of the group stage and the Slovakia game, and I think it's perfect management. This is the plan all along.
Well, it might well
Even
be.
England are Ancelotti's Real Madrid.
Right, stop it now. Okay. It might well be that they've purposely decided to build their way into the tournament and they've not pressed. I think let's chat about 2-3 weeks ago that now seems like a lifetime ago about not pressing and dropping deep. Could be they're just saving their legs.
Purposely doing all this.
Could be they're saving their legs.
Don't worry, lads. Jude will pull out an overhead kick in the 95th
well,
minute.
possibly not that. But I mean,
Ollie Watkins for a reason.
Yeah. It is.
But that first half, my God.
Much the best half that they've played.
Comfortably.
Yeah, and Andy, you were talking about the space that England would get, in particular Bellingham and Foden.
Yeah, spot on about that, Andy, yesterday.
And for once, Andy, you were spot on.
Oh, Andy, you were spot on, and that's all I'm going to say.
No, for the I don't know the umpteenth time, Andy, you were spot on.
It's funny because Foden was so good in that first half.
My God.
That it was a clinic. It's convinced people that Bellingham wasn't, which I don't think is really fair.
You always have to have one opinion about something strong about one, and then you have to be disparaging about something else. You can't just go, he was really good and he was okay.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I think we'll get to it later, but Bellingham was really valuable, actually, as the game went on. And I think it was underlined as the game went on that Southgate made exactly the right substitution, because I don't know about you guys, I would have taken off Kane and Bellingham rather than Kane and Foden.
Yeah.
But it proved to be exactly right. And you see that bit, if we go to after the goal at the end, where Bellingham goes on that dribble and holds off Veerman to the point where he wants him to foul him. Yeah, Foden can't do that. That's massively important. And
he bought that foul.
Yeah, totally.
Massively.
And it's one of those moments where you think,
left over from his time at Dortmund. I'll probably need to use that at some point.
It's one of those moments where you think, actually, maybe even Jack Grealish, who I would have brought for exactly that reason, maybe even he couldn't do that. So it turned out to be absolutely right. But the first half, to go back to that, I thought it was fantastic. And I thought it was really interesting how the Netherlands had to sort of adapt on the hoof to that. Obviously, they came out of the blocks really fast. I have to say, I think the criticism of Jordan Pickford for that goal is a little harsh because it gets it out of his feet so quickly, Xavi Simons, and I think
might diverge from you on that, but you carry on.
Well, I think it's a tremendous finish. Now, I don't think there are many,
but it can be both things.
Yeah, it can be, but I don't think there are many. I think it's easy to convince yourself when the goalkeeper gets a hand to something, he should have saved it. I don't think it was the case in that case. And I think, but the way that England didn't let it knock them off course, and it's like an accelerated version reflection of everything they've done for the rest of the tournament. There are loads of moments that could have knocked them off course, but they've managed to regain their composure. And like the composure is, people talk about fighting spirit and they want to talk about fighting spirit because it's international football. But actually, the composure is more important than playing well for 90 minutes, which is just not possible.
And was anybody more composed, Jim Campbell, than Ollie Watkins?
Oh, what a moment for him. I watched it with friends of mine who support Villa. They were like proud parents, which was a wonderful, wonderful thing to witness. But I'm so delighted for him. But also, it shows that Southgate is really getting to grips with the whole squad in a way that I'm not sure he's really done quite so efficiently before. Because, we were all surprised that he took Tony and Watkins. Both of them have made immense contributions. There's clearly method to it. He knows what player suits what game best. And he seemed the obvious one. It felt like you might get a chance in behind the Dutch because they were sort of pushing a bit. And obviously he recognised that, made the change. Palmer's a wonderful option to bring on with him as well because he's got that sort of kind of laser focused passing and what a finish! It is such a ridiculous angle. He loves scoring from really, really weird angles.
I'll tell you what,
and I love how as well that he doesn't look at the goal. Like he knows where it is.
That's the thing. If you're De Vrij, you're thinking, what have I done there? I've actually defended that quite well. I pushed him into the area where I would have wanted to push him.
There was a goal going around on X. Where he did that at Craven Cottage last season. I was like, all right, lads.
Yeah, leave it out.
Come on, it was just...
I blame the Musketeer for that. I would say
have contributed there.
But, I mean, indeed,
it's true, they played their part.
That Ollie Watkins celebration, Luke.
Oh, it's amazing.
His face. I remember when Wales obviously reached the semi-finals in 2016 and
Ashley Williams.
The big bells were on them and that Ashley Williams celebration. Honestly, his face, like it's that moment where he's just like he cannot believe it, and he's going. It's like just get everyone,
and it's what football's all about. And football, isn't about these kind of pre-planned celebrations and these kind of weird choreographed things. They're all fun.
It's not time for a dance.
They can be fun. Yeah, they can be fun in their own context. But this is like pure joy. And it actually carried over into the post-match interview. But I actually thought he was going to cry.
Yeah.
At the start of the interview, he looked like he was stopping himself crying.
Yeah.
But just to pick up on the goal, I don't get too ahead of myself because there's still the final to play. But that Ollie Watkins winner, I think, might have been the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, I agree.
Ever.
And I mean,
ever.
It did feel like that.
He seemed to be checking at one point that it wasn't a dream. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could almost see that mental process in his mind.
On the quality of the goal that Andy, you and Jim have just talked about, like I said this on Twitter last night when the dust was settling. It's an amazing goal for so many different reasons. You can probably list between 5 or 10 reasons why it's such a good goal. You've got the context, the time of the game, the fact it's for England. It's in a big knockout semi-final. In the final minute,
he hasn't started a game of football. I know he's
only come off the bench.
20 minutes in the last few weeks.
I totally agree with Andy about De Vrij. I think it's a bit of a complicated one because De Vrij will be conscious that Ollie Watkins has got an absolute razor right foot. So the only thing you could possibly argue is that maybe he tries to push him on his left. But if he pushes him on his left, he's pushing him towards the goal, which is probably what he wouldn't be coached to do. He's pushed him to such a tight angle. You can see by De Vrij's body language in that moment, who is a really good, really experienced defender, played at the top level for a long time. You can see from his body language he thinks the job's done. And he actually puts a bit of a lazy leg out, which creates the gap for it to come through the legs. And once it comes through the legs, a lot of people listening will hear this chat all the time. When people say it's difficult for the goalkeeper, what they mean is the goalkeeper can't see the ball emerge from the foot till it goes through the legs. So they've got far less time to react.
I don't think the sighting's the issue though, because it's such a
this case,
and it's so well hit.
If I may, Andy, in this case, the reason it doesn't make any difference is because that is a combination of power and precision that is basically unstoppable.
It has to be perfect.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely perfect.
And again, for a guy who, he's got a great season, of course he has, for Villa. But, he's not playing for a club who are regularly in Europe. I know they played in European competition, but it was a conference.
They will be next season.
Well, indeed they will. But all that considered, and we talked about Tony as well.
I fought tooth and nail for Watkins to be in that squad, and I fought every single fucking week on Lions Watch for him to be in there. I kept it in the news
Watkins
headlines.
And I said Tony.
Yeah, we got them both.
Indeed, we did.
Got them both.
I also said start Mainoo.
You did. To be fair,
yeah. So,
he was excellent as well.
So really, I should get a medal at some point. Of course.
Presented at Craven Cottage, presumably.
No, I'm happy to go to Berlin.
By Roy, reading the broadsheet.
Yeah, I'll be like, I remember you. But going back to Watkins. I swear on my life, my kids' life, I said to Cole Palmer, we're coming on today and you're going to set me up. Now, again, how many of those conversations happen over the years and da-da-da-da? But there was a sense of purpose, and Southgate has to take an enormous amount of credit. Our very own Vitushin Hantharaja said I can't remember if it was on Twitter or on our WhatsApp group, it doesn't matter, but said something that a lot of us have sort of touched on here. The way Southgate's used his squad has actually been pretty good, you have to say, but the way he's kept everybody keenly interested. Watkins said he was looking at the game going, get me on, I can make a difference. Bearing in mind that he'd played 20 minutes in the second group game against Denmark. That's all he's played. Yeah. Now, I know you might say, well, he's a professional footballer, he should back himself and so on, but the fact is he's like a coiled spring ready to go. You have to keep a player interested, because if you get to that stage of the tournament and they've not played and they've not looked like they're playing, and in fact he may well have thought, I'm third choice striker now behind the guy who's the best, scored the most goals for England ever, and this guy who can take penalties with his eyes closed, I'm not going to get a look in.
And it's harder to do that with bigger squads. Like,
indeed.
26 players offers you a lot of opportunity, a lot of option, and the opportunity to take both Tony and Watkins, as you say. On the other hand, keeping the morale up in the group, making everyone feel important. Yeah. Because realistically, in any group, there's at least 4 or 5 of those who are probably not going to see a minute.
Well, and look at the way Ramsdale celebrates as well.
He's first on the pitch every time.
He's in there, and obviously, he's had a bit of practice with this at Arsenal. But also, like, there was a picture of Southgate hugging Joe Gomez on the pitch afterwards. You see, and
so he's used 20 outfield players out of effectively 23 outfield players he can use.
Yeah, they've all made a contribution as well.
But indeed,
so
and they've all got their moments.
Really well.
How many times has Southgate going on about moments? Yeah. And it's like, these are the crucial things. And what England have done in this tournament is, right, set up not to lose, and we will rely on the moments. I understand that's different to what Spain have done, but let's be honest, France have set up like that, Portugal, maybe not in the first couple of games, but generally, you can go through all the teams. Southgate has done this, and yes, we think, against Slovakia, was he a bit lucky, blah, 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 blah. As Luke said earlier in the tournament, it gets to a point where you kind of go, well, hang on, there's a lot of luck going on here. And it's yes, you also have to bit of luck, but there's also a bit of design as well, you have to say. So that's how he set up, and these moments are coming. They're there for England. Will it be enough to beat Spain? We'll talk about that. But it's got them in the final, and those are on the periphery of the squad, like Watkins. He has a moment that he has for the rest of his life. Even Trent Alexander-Arnold with that winning penalty. Tony with his contribution. Everyone feels valued. Everyone's involved. It's a glorious, glorious thing, and it's a rare thing. And Southgate does not get the credit for that kind of thing.
Well, the moments
enough.
Obviously, they're not lightning strikes, are they? They have to be crafted, and actually, the volume with which they are creating opportunities for these moments is going up at exactly the right rate. It's exactly what we sort of feared we weren't going to see, hoped we would see, and we are seeing that. And obviously, the most eye-catching change about England under Southgate, especially in this tournament, of course, is that they look so much calmer with penalties and in shootouts, and just. There's so much preparation that's gone into that you think, okay, they're serious about this. They know it's not a lottery, all that stuff. It feels different. But for me, as important is that the fatalism has gone. Yeah. There was a sense with England, and the team seemed to carry it as well, that like, it's not going our way, we're probably going to limp out again, it's not really anything we can do about it, it's happening again, this is what happens to us at tournaments, maybe there's a bit of bad luck, or maybe there's a bit of good luck you haven't capitalised on. There's always a narrative that sort of is same old. That is gone. These late goals are showing that.
Yeah, but that's
what an incredible thing to be able to turn around. That is by design as well. And again, he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, which is why obviously I just sort of threw it away. It was a bit silly, but it is slightly, in part, reminiscent to what, say, Ancelotti and Real Madrid do in the Champions League. We've seen them with the late comebacks and the late winners.
You find a way, etc., etc.
Indeed, and also Ancelotti's always very calm.
Yeah,
and of course, there's you can't rely every week on a 95th minute bicycle quick. I understand that, but this England side, that, as you say, there is a sort of like, right, we're going to find a way here, lads. And okay, they're not knocking on the door and throwing men forward. It's frantic, but they are in the final, and perhaps crucially, they're doing it because they're not going ahead in games. If you're going to hold the lead, just do it for a couple of minutes at the end. Bang!
But I still think there's something in the idea that you're talking about the first game there. I still think there's something in the idea that, because I look back in the group stage and think of the players' reactions, particularly after this second game, where you think, okay, they don't see it this way. Whatever way we see it, I'm not saying we're wrong and they're right or vice versa, but they don't see it that way. They see it as like, we're getting through this group stage. That's the first challenge, and we'll just get through it. And this is a team who have built their way through the tournament. But I think we should focus on the Netherlands game itself, because we talked a lot about the tournament overall. I thought in the first half it's possibly the best I've seen England play
at this tournament, definitely.
For a longer time than that, though. I think if you talk about when it really counts, I mean, it's a semi-final. I know England are making a habit of getting the semi-finals these days, but they didn't play that well in the semi-final against Croatia in 2018. They didn't play that well against Denmark in the semi-final in 2021. They didn't get to the semi-final in 2022, of course. To me, that's a standout half of football. Now, of course, you have to play across 90 minutes, and England, whatever, they made it happen and they got through. I just thought it was an absolute clinic from Foden. That Foden feat for the goal ball that's cleared off the line.
Yeah.
If that goes in, that's an iconic goal.
Absolutely.
In that tight space, with that speed, it's incredible technique. And that goal, which he basically almost replicates the Lamine Yamal goal as well.
That hits the outside the post.
He's a few inches away from that, And then obviously the penalty was fortunate.
Let's talk about the penalty then. It was a standout moment in the game for right or wrong reasons. A lot of people thought it wasn't a penalty. Gary Neville certainly did, although Ian Wright argued against it. When I first saw the replays, I'll be honest with you, I thought that's not a penalty. Christina Unkel, who's been brilliant, the VAR referee consultant on ITV, she even said straight away, I don't think that's going to be given as a penalty.
Harry Kane was rolling around on the floor holding his ankle, not asking for a penalty.
Yeah, it was the top of his foot, wasn't it?
Yeah. Whatever.
Well, so before we give our opinions, VAR expert Dale Johnson has explained why it intervened. Now, Johnson said, why has Danker advised a penalty? He has taken the nature of Dumfries' challenge, leading with the studs, as opposed to making an attempt to kick through the ball, as being reckless. So lifting your leg up in there, straight leg with your studs showing. Yes, he's trying to block the ball, but he's saying that's a challenge. That's reckless, which is why he was booked. That's the one area where a defender catching an attacker after a shot can be seen as a penalty, when it's reckless or dangerous. And before the tournament, UEFA stipulated in their in their sort of law
pamphlet, booklet,
whatever, wherever you can read it. Yeah.
Flyer, they put it for people's letterboxes.
Airdrop.
Guidelines. Airdrop.
Wherever you get your UEFA laws.
Available from all UEFA law platforms.
They said that players' safety will be strongly taken into account with regards to VAR decisions.
Which no one told Weghorst about, by the way. Because that guy's a fucking human JCB up front.
He's just having a comfy little seat on Mark Gay
My God.
5 times.
My God.
So I suppose, as it's been explained, I can see why the penalty was given, which is surprising that Christina Unkel, who's been absolutely superb and airtight with the explanations, immediately said that won't be given as a penalty.
It's a quick reaction, though. Literally after.
And it's still opinion. It's still interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, Andy,
you said it wasn't. Andy, you were confused as to the chat before the show about we were saying that's a fortunate penalty. You had a furrowed brow and were saying, well, for me, it's definitely a penalty. And the reason it's interesting to say that is because you were at Stockley Park listening to a different feed doing the game. You didn't hear what we had on ITV, right? So for you in a different situation, you're.
I mean, that does sound like I was VARing the game.
Yeah, well, it also
you were at
sounds
Stockley
like
Park.
If you're in Stockley Park, that is clearly a penalty. Raises some questions itself.
After a long delay,
with the aura of that place.
Come in, Agent Brassel. Your work is done.
Before you go, you have to watch this video we've prepared for you.
Yeah.
With matchsticks on your eyelids.
What was your take then, Brassel?
I thought it was a definite penalty.
Right.
I thought it was a definite penalty that definitely wouldn't have been given 5 years ago.
Right.
Because the ones where it's a follow through after someone's got the shot off never used to get
That's
given.
right.
Yeah.
Even if it was an actual foul.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a proper
it
sort
was
of taking
always
someone
seen
out.
as if you got the shot off. Like the foul didn't stop you from doing anything, but he's gone in there with his studs and he doesn't get the ball.
Well, and Dumfries himself said this after the game. I wanted to block the shot. I barely touched him. I do think it's a VAR penalty. When you know he goes to the sideline, he can give it. I take full responsibility. So even Dumfries himself, I mean, when he says he barely touched him, I understand that from Dumfries' point of view, because it's almost like Kane is kicking his foot.
That doesn't matter in the laws anyway.
Well, clearly, whether it should or not is a different debate.
Yeah.
But But that's what it states. But also, you know what it's like if you catch the bottom of someone's boot with the studs on top of your foot. It's a sore one. Yeah,
I've broken my toe doing that before.
Right. So did you think it was a penalty?
Well, I initially I thought no. Initially I was confused, and I have to be honest. All this context you've given there is helpful, and so I'm kind of obviously I'm fine with it anyway because it's England. But I would have been upset if it had been given against England. Yeah. I think once we've given that explanation, I would have accepted it, of course. But what I would say is a bit of extra context, which is maybe worth listeners thinking about as when they're watching football regularly. What it felt like to me when I thought about it was this kind of stuff does happen a lot when, for example, a team are pressing and the ball's, say, with the fullback and the fullback lumps one up the line and the forward comes in, tries to block it and goes in, dives in, studs up, and sometimes he catches the fullback, sometimes he doesn't. The fullback invariably goes down, screaming like he's been shot. The referee always gives it as a foul and always gives it as a yellow card. It felt a bit like that in the penalty area, which by the laws of the game basically means it's a penalty anyway. Yeah. So I do understand it, although I am fairly sympathetic with the fact that the laws have become very complicated now. It's clear some of the players don't fully understand them. Dumfries has been very magnanimous there, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think fair play.
But I think at the time I was thinking, God, I'm pleased that's not been given against England.
Doesn't it feel like one of those where you almost feel as if the threshold for a foul has to be higher in the penalty area? Because I think
it does feel like that.
Anywhere
I don't
else
think that's unfair.
Anywhere else on the pitch, I think it's a penalty. It's a free kick.
I would agree with that. And again, with regards to the reckless nature of it, it's almost as if I'm just holding my arm out like this, and if you run into it, it's your fault. There's certain actions you can do. Yeah. That if he's sticking his leg up like that and the studs are showing, you can't say, well, you got to work around it. Well, clearly in that moment, Harry Kane's going for the ball. So again, I think it's a touch harsh, but if you've got a problem with it, fine. I certainly wouldn't argue back against that too much. But you've got a problem with the law of the game rather than the specific decision made on the night, if you see what I mean.
That, to me, at the time, looked like it was essentially just a painful coming together. When I saw they were checking for a penalty, it took me a moment to even think about what that might have been. I thought, did I miss a handball or something? But I guess that you summed it up very well. That is simply the law now, and we've benefited from it massively. That said, I don't know if you've seen the footage doing the rounds on Twitter of Gareth Southgate just before that talking to the fourth official saying, "We'd like to use our voucher, please."
True.
I'll tell you what,
pulled out of his pocket.
You talked about penalty vouchers. My goodness,
about time we had it.
Yeah. And Kane puts the penalty away quite beautifully, really. I mean, Dumfries was, pretty magnanimous in defeat there. I mean, Ronald Koeman said that VAR has broken football.
I'm glad to hear that, because I thought from the interview that I saw with Ronald Koeman, he was very magnanimous.
Yeah, I thought he was
thinking
actually
back to 94. I was like, I really want to hate you here.
Yeah,
93.
Ronald.
93.
Sorry, 93. Yeah. I really,
but
really,
the
really want to
repercussions
be petty about
felt
this.
well into 94.
But never forget. Van Dijk also said, by the way, the referee ran back inside straight after the full-time whistle. That says a lot.
Yeah, so I'd like to pick up on that, because I think Van Dijk, first of all, is always someone, particularly for Netherlands, and maybe Andy can disavow me of this, but I don't think he will. Van Dijk is always, shall we say, stretching the limits of what a captain is able to do. Yep. And so I'm not surprised that he said that. Obviously, it's a painful moment for them. Totally understand that. What I would say is a load of things happening at the same time here. It's fine to be confused why a penalty was given. It's absolutely cool to accept the explanation you've given us via Dale Johnson, who I think is excellent. Yeah. Anyway, it's also fine to say that VAR has broken football, because I broadly agree with that. But that doesn't mean that wasn't a penalty. Yeah. And I would also say, over the top of all that, I actually thought the referee had a really poor game. I thought he was not really in control of it. There's a lot of confusing decisions, which is basically what I kind of base all that stuff on. And so I can understand why Van Dijk was frustrated. I don't think the referee meant that anyone won or lost the game. I don't really think that ever happens.
An irritant rather than an influence.
Yeah, but totally well put. But I do understand why Van Dijk was frustrated, because I think, from an England fan's point of view, I thought Weghorst was an embarrassment. I thought it was a total disgrace, and the referee didn't get a hold of it. And the referee did that thing that sometimes they do, where they let something that's on the threshold of a yellow card go early, and you can forgive Weghorst for the first big challenge on Gay or on Belling or wherever it was. But the referee didn't give him a yellow then. Yeah. Because you thought, okay, he's coming on, he's picking up the pace of the game, it's clumsy, he didn't mean much by it, it's a foul, and that's fine. I get that. But then what he does is he sets his stall out, and Weghorst has about 4 or 5 of them.
There was a glorious moment where he hits John Stones like way after the ball, and Stones just looks at him.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
It was just, like, he didn't even shout. He was just bewildered,
confused.
like, what?
And the referee's
Slightly
role.
Keegan-esque.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment of the game.
Without being too high-minded about it, the referee's sole main responsibility is to protect the safety of the players, right? Wout Weghorst is massive. He's a battering ram.
Yeah.
The referee's part of the role of giving a booking to a player isn't just the fact that's the laws of the game. It's the fact that you've got to give him a warning. It's effectively a warning to say you are endangering a player.
Hello, I am Sven Goran Eriksson, and you are listening to the Football Ramble.
Do you know what was interesting, though, is talking about the tactical decision of Koeman, is he brought him on at half-time. It showed you how concerned he was and how dominant England were in that first half.
He's done that at half-time in every game.
What,
so far in the
Weghorst
knockouts. Well, it was at half time in Turkey. He did it with Marlon against Romania. So he subbed a forward at half time. So really,
and obviously Depay had gone off early.
His sub patterns went exactly as you would expect to, apart from Memphis going off. But actually, Memphis going off kind of helped them out. It kind of helped them get a better grip on the game, because I think we talked about that gap, didn't we, yesterday, between the defence and the midfield that England could maybe exploit. And after that early goal, as England start to get back into the game, you've got a situation where Xavi Simons and Memphis are doing lots of defending in central areas, which they shouldn't have to be doing.
It wasn't a game for Depay at all.
So that's why when Depay was injured, they send on a midfield player rather than a forward, and it helps them get a better grip on the game. But in terms of Weghorst coming on, obviously that's to really occupy the England defence. And I mean, there is
defence that is used to defending against a striker like him.
But there is enough of him, as Luke was saying, to sort of occupy three people. But I think what's the interesting thing about that, how that didn't get clamped down upon by Felix Zweier, is the fact that what Switzerland did against England, or what, say, Germany did against Spain, was more sort of clever modern fouling, in that you share the fouling out amongst the team, so it's quite difficult for the referee to track. And maybe each of you does a foul that's slightly less than a booking, and you probably get away with it, and if one of you gets booked, that's fine. But Weghorst was the one making all the fouls.
I just really found it strange. But to pick up on the midfield thing, it was clear at half time that they had to do something. They were getting absolutely overrun. They were getting treated the way that England used to get treated in midfield against big good nations in tournaments, right? Extra man, lot more movement, lot more fluid.
No outball.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. They were getting absolutely overrun, and I don't want anyone to be seduced into thinking that 1-1 at half time means that it was nip and tuck. England were absolutely battering them.
But it was a shame that England couldn't press home that advantage, because I thought Koeman will do something.
I was thinking you've got to make it count.
Yeah, exactly. And they couldn't quite, but that's tournament football, and ultimately they've gone through. But Koeman changes it up and basically stops England, and it becomes a bit of a stalemate.
Yeah. But we also know from the pattern of essentially every single game in this tournament that the second half is going to have a lot less energy in it from both teams. And Southgate is aware of that, and he's navigated that really, really well, particularly with the substitutes at the times that he made them.
I think he deserves a lot of credit, actually, Southgate, for, because as Marcus has already mentioned, the chat around Southgate and his lack of proactivity has been a criticism that's been thrown at him. I think he knew, or him or Steve Holland or both of them knew, that what Netherlands were going to do at half-time, what Koeman was going to do, and that I think that's why he brought Shaw on.
Yeah. Well, I think Trippier, it sounds like he might have had a bit of a knock or something.
I don't think he was fully fit from the one before.
Well, maybe.
But
I mean, Southgate said this, didn't he, after the game? He said that, we'll see, and he's trying to keep his cards close to his chest now. He really is, and obviously Shaw came on. But I thought, Southgate again spoke after the game. He said Netherlands kept changing formation, they kept changing tactics, and they were responding. And I think that Southgate's tactical nous has often been criticised. I think harshly. I understand it in little bits, in particular in the early rounds of this tournament. But actually, he doesn't sometimes get the credit of actually sort of mixing it up. And England have been, they're probably more of a reactionary team than being a proactive team, and we'll certainly see that in the final, I would have thought.
But that's been part of their error in previous tournaments, like going hell for leather and then running out of gas, as Jim was saying. I mean, in terms of bringing on Shaw for Trippier, you can talk about the fitness aspect of it, but I think really the one break on England in that first half is that they couldn't get round the outside on the left. So every time it was going to Trippier, the pace slows. He stops. He wants to bring it inside.
There was a really notable moment.
He wants a lot of touches as well.
There was a really notable moment early on where I think it was Bellingham had the ball and he was looking out to the left flank and it was a massive open space.
Yeah,
I think actually it's funny you mentioned that because I thought Bellingham had held on to the ball a bit too long there and was perhaps trying to do too much. I was like, is that creeping back into his game? But I think that was the only moment of it. I think that's sometimes players just misread each other, right?
Yeah. But I guess that is when we talked about changing the game late on. That's why, and we've talked about the finish from Watkins, which is fantastic.
Oh my God!
But Palmer's role in it can't be diminished.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Because at that point in the game, most other players maybe want to put their foot on it, slow the game a little, pass it sideways. He's only looking one way. And so because the finish is so good, you think, oh, well, it's not an exceptional pass. But actually, it is just because of the intention of it.
It's perfectly weighted in that area.
Absolutely.
And Watkins said that him and Palmer, he says they feel that they've got some sort of understanding, and you sometimes get that with a couple of players. I mean, they've certainly got a piece of evidence there. But the fact of the matter is, it's the reason why Southgate said he brought him on. Ollie Watkins makes that run.
Yeah.
And look, Harry Kane, you can be critical of a Harry Kane performance in a single game or even in a tournament without taking away the incredible performances and goal scoring records and all the rest of it he's got for England. He will start the final, and I think that's probably the right decision.
He should.
He took his penalty very, very well. And look, I know that it's you're meant to score penalties, right? But you've still got to put them away. Yeah. And he dispatched it.
Given the last one he took, he missed in that kind of environment.
Well, exactly. And no one's really mentioned that. So again, that kind of helps him exercise that little demon.
He looked so pleased for Watkins as well in the post-match interview.
And that's another thing. Again, that's sort of scored harm we talked about. And Kane now has scored more knockout stage goals in major tournaments than any other European player in history.
Which is an amazing fact.
But the fact is, he was tiring. Now, some people may have thought that Southgate could have made the change maybe 5-10 minutes early, maybe even slightly earlier. I was thinking to myself, this is not going anywhere. Maybe something needs to happen. Well, the fact is, he takes off Kane, England's top scorer in their history, and Phil Foden, who's had a good game and was the Premier League player of the season. It's a ballsy thing to do, and people might say, well, it's a bit obvious to take off Kane. Well, look at Martinez and Ronaldo. Look at sometimes Deschamps and Mbappe. Look at, there's lots of other reasons there. You know, he kept him on against Slovakia, and he said, I just felt like there's something in this. He got it right. He took him off yesterday. He got it right.
And it's worth,
looking after him is part of respecting him.
Well, exactly.
At this point, because his body can't really do the 90.
But with playing with 2 10s, with Bellingham and Palmer, as it was at the later stages, they want someone running in. And we spoke yesterday, Jim, about if it's an hour in or 70 minutes in and Kane is struggling, who do you take on? And you said it's got to be Watkins.
Yeah. It's a completely different challenge.
Credit to you as well, Jim.
You've played your part, Jim.
Indeed. Credit to Kane as well for being the sort of character that will accept that, as we've sort of touched upon.
There's no shrugging and arms
exactly.
in the air.
He's completely on board with it, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I think Watkins, as we touched on earlier, does seem the obvious choice for that sort of challenge because he will stretch defenders. And if they've not been playing against that sort of style for the whole game, when Watkins is coming on fresh, it's a good point. It's a completely
different challenge, right?
Really annoying new problem to have to deal with, and so it proved.
And let me just drill down a bit on the Kane theme, because what's the chat's been around the last couple of weeks, perhaps even mostly the last week because of the knockout stages we've seen. We keep talking about shit games, stodgy games and moments. Well, really nothing really physically embodies that and personifies that than Kane. You look at him playing for however many minutes yesterday, and far too often, to be honest, he looks on his heels, he looks half fit, and the move breaks down, and it bounces off him rather than sticks to him. And you think, God, this is a bit stodgy. What's going on there? We need to replace him. Yet he wins a penalty. He scores a penalty. He scores a goal against Slovakia in the extra time. He's become a player of moments who possibly perfectly suits this tournament, and that is why he'll start the final.
He's also joint top scorer, although they're still doing that annoying thing with, but he's got more assists. It's just like, like you might as well. He's taken more corners.
It's got to be divided by minutes. It has to be divided by minutes.
Who's got the nicest car? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care.
Who has got the nicest car?
I've no idea. But if you have 100 assists in this tournament, none of that translates to you scoring a goal.
It should be divided by minutes.
Just give them all a trophy. Like if they're all joined like that.
You can afford a lot of golden boots.
You get a trophy. You get a trophy.
Well, if they all finish on the same tally, yes, they should.
Surely you can divide it by minutes because you say you're a more efficient goal scorer.
Maybe, but I don't think you have to. Anyway, that's something that
don't worry about it yet.
I'm trying to get UEFA around my table.
But it's right to say, Jim's spot on about providing a different challenge. And we talked yesterday about the idea of there's different ways of occupying centre-backs. And, I think De Vrij's a good defender. I think Van Dijk's a good defender. I also think they're 65 years old between them. And in the last 10, 15 minutes of a high intense game where the pressure's on, perhaps I'm overreading it the way De Vrij behaved for that Watkins goal. Perhaps he was just tired. Perhaps he thought, fucking hell, I don't really want to be up against this.
Yeah, he's not expecting him to shoot.
And he did whatever he could do, and it worked. And it worked.
Yeah, we're well over half an hour into this podcast, and we haven't really said the name Kobbie Mainoo yet.
Oh, he's great.
Fantastic.
He was fantastic. So progressive, so positive, so assured.
Made some big tackles as well. Like every element of his midfield play was absolutely spot on yesterday.
The type of midfielder that England have been crying out for.
Yeah. Where's he
for
come
a
from?
long time?
It's
Well,
brilliant.
It really. And
He plays for Manchester United.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
we've got to
Don't really watch them.
Fair enough.
We've got to give Eric Ten Hag some credit,
Here
which
we
you'll
go.
be delighted with today. But
I'm sure he's in a great mood.
But with Mainoo, the way he takes the ball on the turn, very tidy in possession, beautiful feet as well.
Reads the game really well.
He suits this formation really, really well.
And he'll suit the final as well, because to have... Look, obviously England will have less possession in the final, but to have someone who is like sort of quite parsimonious with the ball, and nothing he does with the ball is actually that exciting.
But it's so calm, Andy,
but
as well.
that is super important. Like, if you're going to have like 40% of possession, let's try and not give it away so much.
Yeah, well, you saw this in the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
Obviously he scored, but again, if you're up against it,
It could be a similar template.
it could be a similar template.
The Zen-like calm of him
Yeah.
for the goal and the little switch of direction.
Oh man,
The FA Cup final was the breakthrough performance where he showed that what he's capable of for an entire game.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Against
Manchester
an
United
amazing
fans would
team.
immediately say,
Well,
"Come on."
they watch him much more closely than I do, and that's fair enough. I was pretty slow on the uptake with Mainoo. I
Just trying to
mind
protect
that.
you.
But what is also interesting as a theme, I think, around this, England in another final now. That's 2 European finals, Championship finals in a row.
And not many teams have done that.
Quite, and their record is
Fourth
sensational.
ever, I think.
And really, you can fight the good fight on behalf of Gareth Southgate all you like, but ultimately, when it comes down to putting the opinion to one side and looking at the facts of the matter, is that he has produced an incredible era of England performances at the international level, whether it means they win on Sunday or not. That's the fact of the matter. And what he's been able to do is create this environment where the players have been able to flourish. And that's really ultimately what leadership is. Leadership is creating an environment for the people within it to flourish. And there's no better example of that than not just the facts and the statistics around how they play and where they get to in a tournament. It's that if you look at that, I was just thinking then, you look at the players you guys were talking about, the names you're mentioning, Watkins, Palmer, Bellingham, Mainoo, Saka, Stones, what's the difference between now and of eras previous isn't just that they're producing different types of players and they've invested in the academies bringing players through, and Germany 2014 is an interesting touch point. It's that you watch a Phil Foden and he all of a sudden is playing exactly like he plays for Man City.
Yeah.
There's no, the heaviness of the shirt.
Took a while, didn't it?
But it does
him being on that right side has helped.
It does happen. And so Palmer plays that through ball. It's exactly what he's doing for Chelsea all season. Watkins scores that goal. He scored loads of goals like that for Villa. Perhaps not as good, but in that same way. Mainoo carrying the ball. He's not going he's not thinking to himself, or even subconsciously going, well, I'm playing for England now, so I have to do this differently. Yeah. I think you could probably argue Rice is playing a slightly different role, and I don't think Rice had his best game
he likes to play that role, we should say.
But there's no friction between how they play for their club and how they play for their nation. And that really is the ultimate key to success.
Totally,
Yeah, actually, on Rice, I agree. I don't think he had his best game. It was really sort of below his usual standards. But I was impressed by, and this is part of his character as well, how he doesn't hide. No. He keeps going. His ball to Mainoo in the build-up to the goal was an important part of it as well. But Kyle Walker's had a couple of games where you think, oh God, he's not looking reliable. And then he had a brilliant game yesterday. Like, these are the sort of players where that recovery pace. You don't expect them to have too many bad games in a row. Yeah. They're in a position where they're playing themselves back into form, and that is, again, testament to Southgate's environment and how he's created it.
Very much so. We talked about De La Fuente doing the same for Spain and Southgate, and it's so funny, isn't it, that when you just said there, Luke, about this body of work under Southgate and so on, it all changed from last night. I think it would take maybe an absolute battering from Spain in the final for everyone to go, well, maybe. But I think that Southgate now, that win last night, it's suddenly a lot of people, if not everybody, has been won over, not necessarily by the style, or suddenly we think he's...
It feels like legacy, definitely.
Yeah, and I absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that they probably needed to get to the final. As I say, as long as they avoid a battering. I know it sounds very negative, but if you see what I mean.
And also, on the feeling of it, the timing of how the feel-good factor has risen is brilliant. And at the start of the tournament, there were a lot of people saying, "Oh, come on, we need to be positive. Could try and be a bit more positive to sort of help the team out with kind of mental vibes." But you don't choose how you feel about things generally, right?
Yeah.
A feeling just is a feeling, and the national mood. You can't fake it. You can't force it. But I think now,
Yeah, well, but what you can
We're
do,
all where we
Jim,
wanna be.
what you can do is you can hope that somebody who can do all that gets on board.
Yeah.
anyone in particular?
Uri Geller's back, baby. Uri Geller is back. If you didn't see this on X, he was there. His television was behind him.
Yeah, he's
Little Sky Plus box is twirling away. No, he taped over that, presumably.
Yeah.
And he was claiming that his powers helped England go through.
The actual words he used were incredible. I did it. I did it. That is not an exaggeration of how he sounded.
Jim, not even Southgate.
I'm sending my powers.
Not even Gareth Southgate would go, I did that. Not even Southgate.
Not even Ollie Watkins.
No,
He did change it from I did it to we did it quite quickly. He sort of checked himself a little bit.
I don't know,
after he
Andy.
wrecked himself, sadly.
Do you think he's in, Andy, would you say Uri Geller's an agent of chaos, or would you say he's an agent of...
Mossad.
Where's Loro? Where's Loro in all this? Loro's just screaming Mossad at the telly.
Yeah.
I would say shout out to the English squad. But what you've got to think about is what they've done perfectly here, England under Southgate, in a move that will absolutely piss off all the right people, is they've played like absolute drains until the moment the Tories went out of power. Yeah. There's no they've not given the Tories. The more cynical of us might say they've called it in the election in the middle of the tournament so that they a bit of feel-good factor around and the weather's going to get brighter. The weather didn't get brighter, did it?
Nope.
England played like absolute idiots until basically the election, and now they're flying again. It's incredible.
If I may say, these are the opening lines of the report in L'Equipe this morning of the game. It says... it's a country that refuses to serve you a beer after time and scores when the game is finished. A team that bores you to death that's remarkably exciting.
There we go.
There we are.
Got the word
That's the best we're going to get, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Presumably all the England players got 4 out of 10, did they?
Well, Jude Bellingham got a 3, and then
he? Seriously?
they admitted jealousy, or Vincent Duluc, who wrote the article, admitted jealousy in paragraph 6.
There we go.
Which I think is fair.
Blimey, I said a startling admission.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We're even winning over the French.
Very slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Very slowly.
But it's funny, if West Ham won it for England in '66, is this going to be the Exeter City England generation with Ollie Watkins and Uri Geller?
Yeah.
I think it is.
I tell you what, or is it
Worthy successors to Moore and Hurst.
And look, there are moments up for grabs in the final.
Yeah.
Could maybe Eberechi has it? Could it be the Crystal Palace team that wins?
Yeah, could
I
be.
mean,
Could be.
look, we can't go back to the game, but just a moment. The quickest mentions for Mark Gay, who comes in and just
it's brilliant again.
Uncle Mark has done it. We spoke on Ramble Uncut yesterday about a chap who said that he'd got a ticket to see Gaslight Anthem with his brother.
Yes.
And he was saying, should I watch the semi-finals? I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I hope you watched the semi-final.
So apparently, on the Discord, there's a couple of Discorders from our Patreon at the Gaslight Anthem last night.
Right.
And the sound man had a screen.
Yeah, okay.
And a few people were gathered around their phones. And the lead singer of the Gaslight Anthem, whose name I don't know, said something along the lines of, I know what's happening tonight. I don't personally give a fuck, but you guys carry on doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And kind of was very indulging of it.
Great.
So I think all's well that ends well.
Yeah, did you see the Killers, though?
That was amazing.
The Killers were at O2 and they...
I think, can I just say, if you're watching the Killers live in 2024, you should be ashamed of yourself. But apart from that...
Ashamed is a strong word.
Okay, you should be more embarrassed than you are.
All right. I much like L'Equipe, that's the best you're going to get out of him. But yeah, so they were. They didn't watch the whole game. I mean, presumably they put on the last few because they were on stage, weren't they?
They put the last few minutes on the big screen, and as the final whistle went and England went through, the opening bars to Mr. Brightside came on. Yeah. Which, if you're that way inclined, is an incredible moment.
It's good.
It'd be better if better than if Wout Weghorst nodded in the winner. Sorry about that. Anyway,
what I'd love him to have done, Brandon Flowers, is when England finally went through, and rather than bringing in the first few bars of Mr. Brightside, he just got on the mic and went, "Right, I'm going to do a new one for you now." What?
Presumably, Corden would have been on stage, right?
I thought we were going to get through the whole show.
Yeah, come on.
I think one thing we can all be clear on is that all the right people are going to be doing all that kind of stuff ahead of the final. They're going to come out the woodwork. I turned the radio on this morning and fucking Josh Widdicombe's on it talking about it. Corden will be back between now and Sunday. Don't worry about that, Jim. You'll hear about him somehow. Hopefully it's in Pop Bitch.
Yeah. In other sort of entertainment news, did you see that Andre Schnurrer, I think, the German saxophonist?
Yeah, he's defected.
He went to the Netherlands.
This is massive.
Which is surprising, really, because I thought Germany's rivalry with Netherlands was bigger.
That's why I wasn't massively worried about Felix
the thing
Weyer.
is, he's all about Andre Schnurrer. He's all about brotherhood, isn't he?
He's all about building bridges.
Yeah,
I suppose now he's lending his support elsewhere.
Spain, probably.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's. Look, you've had your fun.
Can I just say that's why I wasn't worried about. That's why I wasn't worried about the ref last night, because I mean he's never going to be realistically. If he is what people say he is, he ain't going to be favouring the Dutch. So don't worry about it.
I think we should all rest assured that Andre Schnurrer will be playing Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty when we get to the final.
Hopefully,
we've got to the final, Andy. We've got that. It's banked.
No, when it arrives.
I know.
So
but it just felt nice to say it.
Do you remember back in the day? Was it Brian May on top of Buckingham Palace?
Yep.
Imagine this fella with the sax on top of Buckingham Palace.
Well, if
Prince William giving it the big one, top off.
Wouldn't that put? I tell you what, that's the thing though. If England managed to beat Spain, and obviously England are second favourites, and we're going to talk about England's journey to the final tomorrow, and also preview the final itself on Saturday. But if England can do it, and we want to put a bit of faith back in this nation of the monarchy, we need to do that.
Yeah,
we need to get big Andre.
What, make him king?
Wouldn't go that far. We've got a perfectly serviceable.
We've had a German king before,
and yeah, true. But those days are past now, and in the past they must remain.
Just saying, he won't be that bad.
Just get him on the thing, and then, as you say, we'll in with his
I get him
off.
on the London Eye, 24 hours a day, just playing saxophone round and round and round.
Let's
or
ask
like
his
David Blaine in one of those boxes. No expense spared.
There we are.
Yeah, imagine if England win it and they do a bus parade around the whole nation, but none of the players there, it's just the saxophone
Just the guy.
Yeah.
We'd all be...
And Louis van Gaal.
Yeah. Give him big applause.
You're watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.